Hi guys, it's the Ginger here with my Hetalia AU discussion. Finally, I didn't completely recover the thing because I couldn't find most of it. I found a little bit of it, but not all of it, and I recreated some of it. A lot of it came back from memory, and I'm gonna try to do the best I can not to myself while I'm explaining, because I just woke up. I'm not even joking, I just woke up and I'm already doing this. It's probably not a good idea, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to start out with that these ideas that are here are mostly based off of the Magic card game. So if any of you have played that, that'll make this easier to understand, like the system and everything, the way that it's set up. It's based off the Dragon Age series, Shadow of the Colossus. There's a little bit of Skyrim mixed in there too, and there's a lot of the drama from Game of Thrones that goes on in this AU. So, yeah, they're all drama queens, and they like to kill other people for whatever reason. Some of this is also my own original ideas, and that will be well known by the end of this discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the monarchy and just explain that system a little bit before I get into the actual kingdoms, who rules, and the actual Hetalia part, like where all that comes in, just so that you guys can understand a little bit better what's going on, what can happen in this AU, exactly, like, I don't know how to explain it, like just what goes on in like the lives of the nations and stuff. I don't know. I'm gonna try. So starting off, we have our king, and what I have written on my other computer is the king holds varying powers in different kingdoms. In the old ways, the kings had absolute power and governed by a dictatorship. It's the king's duty to declare and keep alliances and manage relationships and wars with the other kingdoms, as well as care for the people and make laws. The king is in direct control of the royal military and therefore is responsible for appointing the royal and capital generals. They are also responsible for appointing their kingdom's warden, and provided he or she cannot reproduce or not produce a double-elemented child, a prince, the position of the king is gender neutral and is therefore not restricted to males. A king must be born of two elements. Their birth element, their primary element, merely represents the kingdom in which they were born. Their secondary element represents the kingdom they are to choose their spouse from, and this spouse will become known as the heir. A king may be replaced if he or she commits murder or any other crime against the majority of his or her people. Though they rank highest in importance, they are not the most powerful body of the monarchy. Now, this is because there's a lot of actual magic that goes on in this AU. There's a high mage called the Archon that it's the least important, quote unquote. It ranks the last, but that's because mages are like discriminated against in like all this in this world. But they have the most power. They hold the most power. They are pretty much lawless except for their caregiver, which is known as the warden. And the Archon and the warden are supposed to go around, keep peace, travel to the other kingdoms, because they're the only ones that can. They're the only ones that can pass the magical barriers that separate the four kingdoms. So they're supposed to help deal with all these other things, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. There is nobody that can tell them what they can and cannot do. They can just, like, if they wanted to go kill somebody, they could go kill somebody. If they wanted to overthrow the king, they could overthrow the king, if the warden let them. Next we have the prince. The prince holds power one step below the king. Their duty is to become educated in ruling, and are given large but very limited powers, such as commanding the capital army, interkingdom peacekeeping, and are given the limited ability to make capital laws. These laws can be revoked by the king at any time. The position is gender neutral and can be male or female. The prince must be born of two elements, their birth element having to match the king's, and the secondary element having to be different unless the prince is the king's legitimate son or daughter. Punishments for a prince are much worse than the king's. for they must learn quickly how to properly rule. The system of punishment helps weed out tyrants and often includes anything from their powers being revoked, forcing them to step down, to public execution. And this is because you don't want a bad king. That goes without saying. And then after that is the heir. The heir is much like a queen. They are the spouse of the king and hold a gender neutral position. They have but a single element and are hand chosen by the king themselves to be the spouse of their single element that matches their secondary one. While they should rank higher in the monarchy than the prince, they actually rank lower and have the fewest powers. His or her main duty is as an advisor to the king and guiding educator to the prince. Sometimes they'll also be given the opportunity to be the overseer of the warden's activities and the archon outside of the kingdom, though even in their duties they are basically powerless and can be ignored. They cannot be removed from power unless the king dies and the prince was previously deemed fit to rule. If the prince is not yet deemed fit to rule when the king dies, the heir temporarily inherits all of the king's powers until he or she deems the prince ready. If an heir procrastinates in promoting the prince, or never intends to promote the prince for personal gain, he or she may be thrown out of power by the kingdom's warden and the prince takes over from there. Despite the risks, lack of power, and discrimination, being an heir is considered a luxury because they have access to everything the king does and are typically spoiled, especially if they are favored by the king or public. So, if you are an heir, you are pretty much set for life, unless your spouse dies. Your spouse dies, you're screwed. Yay. Such fun. And there are also punishments that go on if they fail to educate the prince in ruling or if they fail to please the king, but they're very, very, very minor things. Like they may starve them for a week or put them without water or something, but they will never deprive them of anything else. They will never throw them in prison. They will never do any of that unless they harm somebody intentionally in a way that could be life-threatening. And now, since I'm pretty sure I am running out of time, since I can only post 15-minute videos, I'm going to go ahead and quickly go over the different kingdoms. There are 5 color type things in the Magic card game. So the kingdoms match that. This is white, black, blue, red, green, and then I also have one called colorless that I added in there for the ancients and everything, since they didn't really fit in anywhere else, but I'll get into that one later. And I forgot to mention that the element is pretty much, if you look at the way that the colors for the magic cards are set up, where they're sort of like in a hexagon. Is that the shape? I'm pretty sure it's a hexagon. The hexagon of colors, where there's just circles of colors, their elements are like that, except typically they will only have one of those. And it's like on their cheek, like right below their eye. The kings and heirs will have 2 of those, so there'll be 2 spots in any pattern, any sequence. And then you have your wardens that are never double brand. They don't ever have a double element. Your heirs never have a double element. And your archon will have all 5. That way they can connect to all the magical energies and everything of nature within every kingdom. And you will hear some interesting stuff later on about the archon and exactly what goes on, like siblings and all this. Because there are 2Ps and Neos and Neo 2Ps in this world, and they really mess stuff up, but they also make it really deep and kind of interesting. But I'll have to get into that a different time. I think I'm running out of time, so have a fantastic day.